Welcome to 10x Engineering. This podcast is by Urban Company, Asia's biggest platform for home services.
Alright guys, so today we are back again with our fourth episode of our podcast series 10x Engineering, and today we'll dive deep into the world of databases. So we'll try to talk about everything that is there to know about databases. With us today we have Rishabh, who has had a solid experience working across multiple database stacks across Oracle, Flipkart, and now with Urban Company. So would be a good guide to actually help us guide through this world of databases. We're going to talk specifically about relational and non-relational databases. And I don't like the word non-relational because the word non makes it very confusing. So for today's, for simplicity's sake, whenever we talk about SQL, we'll talk about in general the class of relational databases. And whenever we talk about non-relational, we'll try to have it as same as Mongo, okay? So no, we're not advocating Mongo as the default choice for non-relational, but whenever we talk about Mongo, just make sure I think it means non-relational databases. Okay. So with that said, I think let's dive straight in. So Rishabh, what I see is what is happening a lot in the community these days. There's a huge shift to move away from traditionally when people used to use MySQL databases to something like a Mongo or non-relational. So what are the key reasons for this shift to happen?
Yeah, thanks, Kana. So multiple reasons. I think the first main reason is over a period of time, the data has become much more unstructured or non-relational is how I would put it. So that is one of the primary driving factors here. The second reason would be Mongo or other NoSQL databases gives you the flexibility of multiple nodes. And with those multiple nodes come multiple advantages. One would be obviously data growth is handled for you. You can scale horizontally. The other would be performance. With multiple nodes, there's a belief that you will become much more performant. The throughput that you can handle will improve. And one more reason is availability, right? If you have multiple nodes, the general perception is usually more available. So yeah, these are the main reasons why there has been a gradual shift away from SQL or MySQL to Mongo. Yeah.
So let's stress that. I think we did this in the last podcast episode also, where we kind of removed the constraint of microservices. I think it really brings out what is really important and what is not. So let's try to do that again this time around and really stress where does something like a Mongo really excel. So let's have it with a constraint that we have a world without like Mongo altogether. So we only have something like a MySQL and see where do things break from there on. So let's start with that and let's talk about data growth first of all. So imagine you only have MySQL to choose from, something that used to be 10 years back. How do you solve a problem of data growth in the MySQL world?
Perfect. So there is always an option to grow vertically, right? You can keep on adding disk or adding storage, and you can always scale vertically. So that should not be a constraint. The limit really kicks in once you reach a stage where you are going up to, let's say, TB of data, but definitely not before that. So you always have an option to scale vertically, and we should be sorted.
And what about after that? Like suppose we have that excess of data at that point, how do you basically then handle it in a MySQL world?
It starts becoming difficult because you don't have the option to distribute horizontally, right? So you sort of start hitting the red lines. The other option is you start thinking of sharding it, right? And this is logical sharding. And then the complexity comes in that the logic for sharding goes into the application. So your application starts becoming complex. But these are the only options that you have.
Got it. So you're saying beyond a certain point, we start sharding it and then taking the complexity of it into the application layer, something which potentially something like a Mongo solves it out of the box. Okay, got it. And what about performance side of things? So what is the red line where SQL starts to be a bottleneck, and potentially how do you solve it in that?
Yeah, so again, there's a belief that overall SQL is not performant, but let's stress test that. I think you can also scale vertically and solve for performance of SQL. So the limiting factor here would be obviously the RAM, the number of cores you have, obviously indexes, better indexing, etc.
And the throughput of queries.
And the throughput of queries, right? But shouldn't be a concern. So the option is to scale vertically and solve for it. The other option, like the previous one, is you put in more slaves and distribute the queries across multiple slaves. But another pitfall, when you start doing that, you can end up in stale reads, right? Consistency goes for a toss. Yeah.
And this leads us to the next point. I think the same thing. How do you achieve potentially, generally, what SQL offers out of the box is consistency, right? And it's well known consistency and availability are opposite of each other. But if we wanted to get availability or over-index on the availability sides in just a SQL world, how do you do that?
To summarize it well, Kana, so again, availability versus consistency. So the only option is if you want to be more available, first of all, writes can't be available because you're constrained by a single master. Usually, we won't go into the complexities of scenario where you can have multiple masters, but usually MySQL would have a single master. So obviously, writes can't be HA, but you can have reads being available, and the way you can do it is you can start reading from slaves. You stand a risk of stale reads, inconsistency. Your replication might not be real time, so that is a pitfall of it. But that's the only way out. You start reading from slaves, and you try to be your reads become more available.
So you're saying read availability is possible, but write that is really tough, and that's where I think kind of something like a Mongo or normally non-relational databases work a little bit better. So let's go on to the other point I think which you mentioned, which is another reason why people are shifting towards something like a Mongo as compared to SQL is this rise of unstructured data, right? So first of all, why is that even a concern? Like there was a point where everything was structured and life was good, right? So why is there a lot of unstructured data? They said, what are the advantages of having unstructured data or semi-structured? Yeah.
In general, I believe the data has become slightly more unstructured as we have ventured into different use cases. For example, let's say in an e-commerce use case, the catalog data, right? It might not be completely structured. So you might not have a well-defined fields or rather it is a key value pair for different set of articles that you're selling, right? Similarly, let's say you are collecting the IoT data of different applications, or you are collecting the log data, or let's say the location data of of your delivery executives, right? So these data points are not truly relational or truly structured. So at some point of time, you might want to add new attributes or new columns or new fields, and you don't want to go through the pain of changing the schema of your database, right? Rather, you would want to do it on the fly. So and developers these days are more comfortable with JSONs, and they want to play with JSONs. So just take a JSON and persist, right? So these are the main reasons why people or the general mindset is shifting away from a truly relational and a structured schema into a more non-relational.
Yeah, I've also seen this argument happen a lot, like in our journey also as startups, where I think it's easier to basically say go with the, not trying to define the schema right at the start, and gives you enough flexibility as requirements change to adapt to a better schema rather than being locked into a SQL world where you have to define the schema and then you have to do migrations. But in my actually honest experience, what I've seen is this often comes with, it's a double-edged sword, right? Like it's because, like I've seen more often than not, developers would use this as a liberty to not describe the schema, which leads to problems later on. For example, it often leads to we have some Mongo data stores where you see every document would have a different schema with it, and you just don't know what to actually write for. There's a lot of garbage which is, over a period of time is legacy and different requirements coming in where the schema was just handling at the runtime. It's the same, I think, debate which you normally have with compile time versus dynamic runtime languages. So I think it comes with it's a little bit double-edged sword to say I think you don't want to have schema. Personally, I think I like SQL because it forces a level of structure which helps in medium term and longer term velocity rather than you just start off with it and then take it as you go. But anyways, let's imagine a world like, okay, schemaless is a reality. We want to have a non-schema in a SQL world. So how do you support that? I think SQL has some support for it also, right?
Pretty much possible. So it's very similar to dumping a document or dumping a JSON into a particular column in a SQL world. So you can always end up doing it, and you can use a SQL store as a NoSQL store, but then you lose the flexibility of queries over the data, right? So pros and cons of it, but you can always do that. So it's not
I think you can have some sort of scheme like this in Mongo, and then you also have some way to query this unstructured data also, which obviously then you won't have with SQL, but it is somewhat possible at least to store it in that way. Okay, so it seems like I think there are some decent workarounds available even in the SQL world to actually get all the benefits of what we thought Mongo or NoSQL had. But like a big asterisk over here is, I think till the point you reach a certain scale, which is probably something like a 1 terabyte database, till that time I think SQL works really well. You can just vertically scale and it's not a issue at all. So the decision to whether to use SQL or NoSQL really depends on a very philosophical choice, right? Like, do you want schema? Do you think your application can do with a relational schema or not? And that is normally a very philosophical discussion as a startup which you need to take. So cool. I think we discovered this world. Let's switch gears now. Okay. Let's think about a world where let's say we only have Mongo. Yeah. So we have no MySQL. So what would that world look like? What are use cases which potentially cannot be solved in that world?
No, let's run through Mongo through the three scenarios that we talked about. One would be data growth, right? So when you think about Mongo, you think about multiple nodes, right? When you think about NoSQL, you think about multiple nodes. So the scalability factor or the data growth factor sort of comes out of the box. So your data is increasing, you tend to add more nodes and you scale horizontally, right? So that is a good thing to have. The other would be, but before we just conclude this, right? I think it is important to acknowledge that many of us, even I have been guilty of it, don't use Mongo in that way, right? So most of us use Mongo with a single master. We don't truly use a sharded Mongo cluster. So that is a point to acknowledge. If we have to use a truly NoSQL store like Mongo, we should use the horizontal scalability part of it. So that is around data growth piece. Coming to the scalability piece, right? I think the same argument goes, right? If you have more nodes, you can scale horizontally. You can take in more throughput, and obviously that gets solved for you. The last point would be availability. Again, the same point. More nodes should give you more availability, but you just need to be wary of the fact that you need to use a sharded cluster. If you're using a single master Mongo, you end up in the same problems as a SQL store or a MySQL store. So if you use these the correct way, then all these three get sorted for you.
Got it. Yeah. So these are some specifics in Mongo, but if I expand it to like in general, I think what you're basically trying to say, a lot of times how we use Mongo, normally it's pretty much acting like a SQL. But let's expand it to like Mongo as a class of, the complete non-relational databases. So imagine we just have that, right? Now, is there some use cases which you can think of which Mongo does not do a good job of?
Yeah. So I think we come back to the point of relational data and data with schema, right? So in real world, we always have such examples where some data would truly be relational. Let's take an example of, let's say, wallet and the transactions, right? So when you recharge a wallet or when you buy something from a wallet, your debit or credit happens against a wallet, and at the same time you record a transaction, and that transaction is linked to the wallet. So this is a truly relational schema. So trying to model it in the Mongo way or in the NoSQL way has some challenges. Obviously, joins don't come out of the box in a NoSQL store or in Mongo. So that is one problem. The other problem could be around the atomicity or the transactionality, right? So again, this is a financial example. You would want the entire operation to be transactional or atomic, right? So let's say you debited some money from your wallet, but you didn't create a transaction. Yeah. So you become inconsistent. And I don't think that is acceptable even in 0.01% of the cases in such a scenario.
Got it. And if I have to push our thinking, for example, if we were to model it in Mongo, right, like just like a SQL, so you have very, very normalized tables for both wallet and for transactions. So how would you basically get this level of transactionality in a Mongo database?
Very good point. Not entirely. I mean, it is possible. It's not possible. It's possible, but difficult. Organizations have done it. I have done it in the past, but sort of a hacky way. So all NoSQL stores provide atomicity at a row level, and we have to leverage that, right? So let's model this as one single row. So what if we have one collection which stores your wallet entry or your balance, And at the same time, it keeps a log of your transactions as your documents in the same row, right?
So it's like an array in the.
It's like array. So in the same row, you update the balance, and at the same time, you append a transaction. So the entire operation would be atomic, and it would be wrapped into transaction. Since it is atomic, it gives you the flexibility of all or none.
Yeah, I mean, then you lose out a little bit on transactions if you want to store it in a completely normalized way. So I'm going to push thinking again. I think, what if we had two different collections in Mongo, just like we have in SQL, and you have one place where you store the wallet, how much credit does that person have, and another place the transactions. So let's say we store it like SQL. Now we want still across collections. If we want to build some sort of reliability on transactionality, how do you do that?
Very difficult problem to solve, Karan, but again, let's try to do it. So one way of doing it is, just as you said, keep two collections and keep two rows into two collections, or keep two documents into two collections. But when you're writing to the wallet, when you're updating the wallet entry, at the same time, in all your collections, have a sort of a flag or a message attribute where you dump a message that has to be updated to the next collection, right? And because that write is atomic, right? What it gives you is, when you're updating the wallet, you're also updating the message, which will eventually be relayed to the second collection. So this gives you eventual consistency. So eventually, if you have a scheduled process which keeps on reading from this particular field, the transaction will eventually be relayed. Pretty much similar to slaves being, or the bin process reading the bin log and eventually updating the slaves in SQL store. So something like that. So you will eventually be consistent, but probably not real time consistent. But yeah.
Got it. So you're saying something like add another column where you're kind of storing whether this message has been relayed or not, then use some sort of a message queue or a scheduled job to read these things and then update it on the other collection. So you kind of, I mean, there are some gray areas over here, but you kind of achieve this in some way. Actually, Rishabh, this is not a very, I would say, unknown scenario, right? Because normally what happens when you increase number of developers, when you have a lot of microservices, your data is not on the same cluster, right? It is actually separated in multiple databases which are owned by different teams, and there is enough microservices or API support on top of that, right? So relations become across microservices and across APIs rather than just on the data world. And to achieve some level of transactionality in some of these things, you have to implement something like this on top of it to actually guarantee some reliability. And at a certain scale, this is important because at a scale of, if you're getting 1 million transactions, 1% also, like that's a huge number still. So you still want to do that. And it's not completely whack in some ways, right?
This is one of the biggest pitfalls of a microservice architecture, the distributed transactionality, right? And this is one way of doing that. So it works. But very hacky way of modeling it in a Mongo way or a NoSQL way, but can be done. Yeah.
Cool. And I think would like to, and so you have worked a lot with different types of databases. I know you're a personal fan of actually both, but you like the NoSQL side a little bit. So I think specifically there's a rise of a lot of databases in this NoSQL. I think we just use Mongo as an example, but there's Cassandra, there's I think HBase, like a lot of these databases coming up, Redis. What are your personal favorites for depending on the type of use case?
Yeah, again, very use case specific, but let's probably talk about the top contenders. Let's bucket it into multiple use cases, Kana. So one would be obviously caches. So in caches, I think there are two leaders. One is Redis and Aerospike, which is coming up. Redis has been there for long and solves for most of the use cases. And the biggest feature is simplicity of Redis. So it works, now supports the cluster mode as well as high HA using Sentinels, etc. So Redis is my perfect in a cache world. There is more OLTP or primary databases. So in such scenario, we have three contenders. We have used Mongo as an example, and that is for a good reason, because Mongo is, I think, one of the most widely used primary data store in the non-SQL world. So the primary reason is because it's sort of an all-rounder. It is truly distributed and gives you the flexibility of scaling horizontally if you need it. At the same time, it gives you the flexibility of querying in a SQL way, right? You can effectively write complex queries and have indexes on multiple attributes. So that is an advantage that Mongo is giving you. So it's sort of a generalist and sort of an all-rounder. If you really need to go for performance and truly horizontal scalability, I think that's where HBase and Cassandra come in. So HBase has the backing of Hadoop in the backend, so it just scales horizontally like magic, right? And it is optimized for reads based on the key. So if your data is structured in a way that you can construct the key ID out of the queries, then HBase works best because it's most performant. But if your queries are more generic and you cannot construct a key ID, then I think Cassandra wins. The reason is because Cassandra is tuned towards not being very consistent, rather towards availability, which means that it can read from multiple nodes, which HBase can't. HBase reads for one particular data, it reads from one particular region server. So where the write happened. So there's one primary region server, one particular data. So unlike that, Cassandra can truly scale horizontally in terms of reads. So it's more performant. So multiple use cases. Generalist, Mongo.
Okay, I'll play a quick rapid fire game. Okay, so you get an option to just speak one database. Okay, name. Okay, so general data store.
Mongo.
Okay, cache.
Redis.
Okay, analytics.
Snowflake.
Okay, search.
Elasticsearch and Solar.
Okay, so there you go. That's your answers. I think that's Rishabh's pick in terms of the NoSQL world, which are the popular use cases, which popular database would be his first go-to choice. So with that, I think we are almost over. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Today, we talked about and pushed our thinking in terms of imagining a world where there is only MySQL, and we also imagined a world where there's only non-relational databases, something like a Mongo. So what would actually happen? And just like anything else, I think there are valid trade-offs to consider. If I have to summarize, I think when relationships are important, when atomicity of transaction is important, it's no-brainer, just use something like a MySQL. And when volume of data and throughput of queries starts to reach a certain level, when that is important, switch away to something like a NoSQL. Until that point, honestly, it's a very philosophical choice. I think whether you want structure of data at a data level or at an application or an ORM level. So that should basically determine whether you want to use SQL or NoSQL. Till that time, it does not really matter. With that said, hope you enjoyed this talk today on databases. Please subscribe to our channel and we will have more content coming in very soon. Thank you.